Okay, so we have hit The Handmaid's Tale Season 3, Episode 8, Unfit. So for this review, I'm going to cover the present day timeline first, and then we'll dive into Aunt Lydia's backstory. Now, before I jump into this episode, I want to clarify things. I saw a lot of people commenting on my last video saying that in the behind the scenes video about the last episode, Lizzie Moss was saying that when she saw the Martha up there about to be hung, that she thought the Martha had messed up the mission and was the reason her daughter was sent away. And that June in that moment wanted to actually hang her out of anger. I looked at that scene completely different. Knowing who June is as a person, I thought she was feeling anger that she had to kill this woman who's helped her since day one here and took care of her kid. And the problem with hearing this information that that's how June was actually seeing the situation is, to me, it makes June the most unlikable to date. And I've always been a fan of June and on Team June, but this is really hard for me to get behind and to believe that she would think that in that moment. Because even if she was thinking that Martha, whatever, ratted her out about the plan or just messed up everything, how could she just be so cruel to want to kill her to that extreme, knowing how much she's already helped her and how much she's put Martha in that situation? Again, these people aren't thinking straight in this situation that June is in, but this is so important because it really trails right into this episode. And what I mean by that is, you see, we open up with the scene with Andy doing breathing exercises, preparing to go into labor soon. And June blames Ofmatthew completely for the Martha dying and for her daughter being sent away. I don't like the ganging up of Ofmatthew here by June and her crew. I actually like Janine more here when she was like telling her to ease up. And the reason I say this is because this episode is full of hypocrisy on all character parts. And with June, it's really frustrating as her being our main protagonist, someone we root for and watch most of the show through her eyes, and have spent so much time this season with her, that I'm supposed to jump on the train that is, I'm completely ignorant that I was really the one who caused Martha's death. And on top of that, obviously it really is Aunt Lydia and Gilead who's causing that. They're in a terrible situation, and Ofmatthew and June in their own right are totally victims in the situation. But to see June, who's been above that, crawl down to this level and treat a fellow handmaid terribly, including Ofmatthew, who, yeah, did the wrong thing, but again, she's in a situation that's terrible as well. She's been through more than June with the amount of rape babies she's had to have. And to gang up on her like that, I didn't like it. And it's just June completely ignoring her recklessness in the past couple of episodes. And that, again, roots from last episode where I thought in that moment she felt guilt, but clearly she didn't. Nothing's her fault. So you see Aunt Lydia here tells her to cool it. June's like, what are you going to do, burn my arm? So June's got this power position now because she says in line she needs to look good on TV if the Waterfords need her. So yes, there's clearly orders here that June cannot be abused in the same way to show face. So we see this her fault circle where handmaids testify. It's an extreme form of confession in a way. And Lydia's like, in your selfishness, you forgot someone you wronged, Agnes, aka her daughter Hannah. And she's talking about how the family's forced to relocate and she's in the coldest, most empty situation she's ever been in. Whose fault is that? So this goes back to what I'm talking about with hypocrisy everywhere, where really, if you go up the ladder, it's Gilead's fault, then it's Aunt Lydia's fault that that's really happened. And she's brainwashing June, making you think it's her fault. But then June's also doing what Aunt Lydia's doing to Ofmatthew. It's just a chain of it. Just everyone pinning blame on everyone. So June goes the revenge route and testifies that Ofmatthew doesn't want her baby. She knows Ofmatthew will not lie. Now, why I feel bad for Ofmatthew as well, and I know this isn't a popular opinion, but it's because A, she clearly has Stockholm Syndrome. She's terrified not to obey orders, and she generally did think she was helping June. So this, to me, again, just makes me mad at June. And I actually cringed a bit when they did the crybaby thing, though, because I hated June's face she was making there. It just made me think she was a bully. And again, I'm not victim blaming. I know June's been through stuff too. Obviously, she's not thinking straight. But this is really tough because this is the person we spend the most time with, and I want to like her. And this was making me really not. And the crybaby thing, I cringed though, because that felt forced. That is not a tradition they have in that ceremony. It's not Gilead, so it was just weird that they would say crybaby like that, and Aunt Lydia was cool with that. I thought that was kind of silly. So you see, the important thing brought up here is that Lydia doesn't like that Ofmatthew thinks she knows more than God. It's a sin. And again, just setting up this backstory then, Lydia, of really how religious this woman isn't strictly religious. And Ofmatthew admits that she was thinking about not having the baby, and she says for a second, and it was just because she was thinking this was a girl, different than last 2 times being a boy, and how they would survive in this new world. And this is exactly something June can relate to. June's been the preacher of protecting the girls in this new world, and how did that not click through her head there that, wait a second, Ofmatthew is in the same suffering boat as you all? I don't know. And just feeling after this scene was, man, this is dangerous waters when you have a main character in a show that you spend so much time with and so focused on, and I've always felt on Team June, and even if she's made silly choices, I still can get the perspective, but this is where here I start not liking it. And that's really tough in such a bleak show already that, wait a minute, the character I'm supposed to have faith and justice in is crazy in my eyes and getting mean now? I don't know. So June asks Commander Lawrence when she gets home if he knows anything about where Hannah is or the Mackenzies. And you see Commander Lawrence is like, I don't know where she is and I don't know anyone who does. And you see what this episode's trying to do is get us on Team June in the sense of this theme they're pushing where she's sick of people not doing anything, and now she's going more towards the extreme side of an Emily, like she says later on in the episode. But I think the difference here between Emily and June was Emily wasn't wronging innocent people in the process. She was taking down all the bad, but I think June's misstepped here and went too extreme. And recently the fan base has already been sick of June and her silly choices, and this is just a flood of them. So now we see off Andy in labor, and we get this little narration where it's like, talking about Tinker Tailor, and now it's Martha, Jezebel, handmaid wife. I don't know if Dr. Seuss wrote this episode, but it clearly felt like it there. Not the greatest. Fortunately, when they got past the book, these narrations started to suffer a bit. That's expected. And look, you see all these handmaids praying for a fellow handmaid during her labor, and you see even Ofmatthew praying in the corner, but June's above that at the moment. She stands far away. She's so sick of just faking all this. And she also knows she has more leverage so she can get away with it. And you see at the end, everyone's hugging off Andy after we find out that the baby's dead. Very tragic. But June in this moment's just staring from afar, and this again is just pushing down your throat. Well, June's a rebel now. She wants to do what she thinks is right. She wants to do something about it, not just sit here. And the way she just felt relief though about what happened with the baby, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not into it. I'm not for that. I get where they're going, where they're saying, oh, this baby doesn't have to live in this cruel world, but oof. And again, this is just my personal opinion. Maybe you're feeling different, and that's totally cool. So Commander Lawrence actually admits now to June that she's getting progress with his wife and is good for his wife. What a flip from last episode. Again, with this Lawrence seesaw thing, we're not just getting enough scenes to clarify what he's really thinking. And June confronts him and is like, you can get her out with one phone call. You're keeping her hostage. You're not protecting her. You're killing her. And Lawrence is like, I bet that felt good. But this, to me, was a more justifiable action again, because Lawrence has done a lot of wrong and clearly deserve that. Different story. But we really need some progress at this point explaining the relationship between Lawrence and his wife, especially for scenes like this. I'm getting sick of it being a mystery. It's been a mystery since the end of last season. It's like, come on, let's move these side stories along a bit and other characters. It really is heavy-handed with June. What was interesting to me was actually the next scene where we see Aunt Lydia's with other aunts, and they're showing the process of how they select handmaids for these houses, what family to be in, and how they're judging by color, by moods, how they match. And it's on like this swivel. That's the stuff I feel like the show has lacked in. Like, give us behind-the-scenes stuff of Gilead, all this stuff you set up in season 1. Please let us understand all of this and what really goes on. This is what the show needs more of. And we got a little bit into Lydia's mindset here where she's like, why would the Lord give such a rotten apple like June 2 healthy babies and someone like off Andy a dead baby? Even the most religious questions sometimes. But you see Aunt Lydia is really going to that theory she has about Lawrence messing up these handmaids, having a bad track record of Emily, and now June wants her out of there. And she says she especially wants June to be on good behavior because she's the walking partner of pregnant Ofmatthew. So we see now June outside looking at Ofmatthew in the snow. This snow and almost hail coming down made me just think of it showing too. June is just as cold as ice at this moment when she's saying, I hurt her and I enjoyed it. And she's like, and I enjoyed the aunts and the wives and Lawrence grieving over the baby. It's an acquired taste to see others in pain. So June's becoming the monster she's hated. And it's really extreme. I mean, I don't know if this is the best decision again to have your main character here who we've been rooting for basking in joy that a baby died. Yikes. And you see now in this grocery store scene, June's talking about Emily, saying how Emily felt when she wanted to stab Lydia in the back, how Ofglen felt with the bomb. This goes back to that theme I talked about with Emily and June, where one was more like the Malcolm X and Emily, and June was more like the MLK. We've seen that in shows before, but it really works between the two of them. But again, even if June's gonna go that way, it's still different to me than what Emily was doing. This is extreme violence, to my opinion, still the wrong people, and just more deaths at her hand to me that don't deserve it. She's just adding to the death and chaos and violence that she hates. I mean, what did this really even do? So you see Lydia informs June that she wants her out of the Lawrence house, and in the background, Ofmatthew's losing it. This is where she starts to snap, and a big moment here was when Ofmatthew kind of looked at June for something, some kind of forgiveness, and June turns her bonnet, gives her the cold bonnet, and like this just causes Ofmatthew to completely snap. So June knows exactly what she was doing to get a rise out of her and to get her rageful, like this theme they're pushing where it's time to act now. But Ofmatthew goes off the fritz and hits the wrong person and starts beating up poor Janine. How many times is Janine gonna get beat up? Maddie Brewer is taking beatings this season. Can we still, though, give her more lines than the amount of beatings she's had? But when June does this evil smirk during this, I did not like this. I did like how this was shot with the gun and that cool camera effect from Ofmatthew's perspective. And June now seeing Ofmatthew, this what she wanted to come out of her, and is giving her the okay nod to shoot Lydia. But Ofmatthew gets railed here. I really thought that was it for Lydia here because of this being her backstory episode. I thought they were wrapping her up for a second. And I really thought this too because we have not got a win in the show enough. And again, all this was for naught. And I'm sorry, this death of Ofmatthew is clearly on June for making her break like that in the wrong way, in my eyes. Didn't accomplish anything, and it was pretty horrifying to see this pregnant woman being dragged on the floor like that. I can deal with heavy stuff. I like it when it works, but this to me was like, Jesus. And seeing that, again, is painting to me. June's in a state where she's very even like anti-child being born. And that rooted again from her being happy that baby died. It's like really, really extreme right now to just pad this, to just make this June now. It feels all over again like Daenerys Targaryen going mad. And this is super fast. And here we are closing again on an extreme close-up of June's face for the 50th time this season. This episode to me felt like it was written by an angry teen. And if they're pushing this message of total blind violence, in my opinion, and revenge, I don't like it. I think it's ignorant. But maybe they're just setting up June as a villain for the story. I don't like that either. It felt extreme. And this again started last episode with the hanging of the Martha and that June wanted to kill her in that moment. What the hell was that? I'll have finishing thoughts about all that, but let's roll to the Lydia backstory. Now, there was a lot of hype going into this. I think everyone was excited, including myself. This is 3 seasons in the making. This is a very iconic character in the show. We've had her since day one. And anytime you get a backstory about a villain, it's very interesting because you want to know how they became like this, what's going on in their head. So we see she's Miss Clements, this 4th grade teacher, definitely at some sort of religious school. And we learn now this child she teaches, his mom is really late, and she packed potato chips for lunch for the kid. So she's, as the title would say, unfit mom. And I love the shot they have when she walks in where you see behind Aunt Lydia, it's Aunt Lydia's standing up and it says, America, land of the free. That was a nice touch for someone who doesn't believe in actual freedom. So you see she offers to the mom and the kid to have chili over at her place and dinner. And I'm assuming the principal, it wasn't made clear to me what his actual position was, but he works at the school, Jim, thanks her, and you see the sexual tension already between Lydia and him. So Noelle, back at Lydia's place, says, so do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? And Lydia says, I was married, he was a mistake. And now when Lydia talks about the kid, she's like, he is so special, you are very blessed. I like they drizzled in a little bit of lines we've heard Aunt Lydia say in current time, and that she'd really use a ton in Gilead. And that happens here too, where the mom's like, he deserves better, but all he unfortunately has is me. And Lydia's like, you could be better. Again, that strict part of her and wanting to retool everything and control everything to what she believes is right, and how this would transfer to her thinking she's making all these women in Gilead better. So now we jump ahead a bit and it's Christmas time now, and you see now they've gotten closer with Lydia. And of course, Lydia gets the kid a book when he talks about, is it an iPad? It's an old book. Again, symbolic of just the old ways of thinking for Lydia. And a nice touch with the kid saying, thank you, Aunt Lydia. Him looking at her as aunt, but just foreshadowing her future position. And we see the mom got her makeup. She's like, it will get you out there. You don't have to be alone. This is a soft spot for Lydia. And she's like, I'm not alone. This is showing you this hurt she has from her marriage. And the I'm not alone thinking also can relate to her deep connection with God in her head. And now Noelle's like, I met someone. And Lydia's like, does he like kids? Again, obviously showing how much Lydia puts kids over anything else and values that. And Noelle's like, he's got 2 of his own. Says he's gonna leave his wife. And you see Lydia does not like this. Face drops, perfectly done by Aunt Dowd. And the wife's like, I'm not as far as I would like, but I'm trying. So this relationship here, you're seeing Lydia is like trying to transform now this unfit mother. And so with Lydia's reaction here to this line, I'd like to make the guess that her past marriage ended in an affair. And that's why, besides religion, she would be very angry about Noelle saying she's getting with someone who has a wife. And this also explains Lydia's harsh judgment towards characters like June, where Noelle is just like June in that sense. So Noelle kind of spins it here, though, to her this time and says, we got to get you out. If I'm going to try harder, so can you. So this is Lydia's turn now to transform, get out of her comfort zone. And it's just kind of crazy seeing Lydia in like this New Year's Eve karaoke bar environment. This is totally not her type of place to be in. It's fun, it's free, it's loose, it's sinful. So she runs into Jim, and he's relating to her, and they're in similar situations here. Both coming out of a previous marriage, both grieving, and he struggles with going out too and adjusting to regular life again. It says last New Year's Eve he just made mac and cheese, didn't go out. But you see here really quick, Lydia says no to the champagne that's offered to her at the table. And Jim's like, it's a special occasion. And this is just a little touch and detail that's so important because it shows you how really strict Lydia is to her rules and moral code, where there's a little contrast with Jim where he's able to still chill out about it and be like, no, it's fine. But we learned Lydia was into family law and that's her first profession and that she likes the system better now because it's privatized, but before it was very frustrating. You couldn't help as many children as you wanted. But you see she's also complimented here saying she's a natural teacher and she's so devoted. Again, that's Lydia perfectly. However, I think it would have been more interesting to see the side of her in family law than as a teacher. But I think this show is still tiptoeing into the political writing. And like I said last episode, it could really use that. And I think that would have been cool to kind of get more into perspective of her philosophy on family. But maybe we'll see that down the line. So we see there's this karaoke. She doesn't want to sing. Jim's loosening her up because she's like, I don't sing, but gets her up there. They're connecting. The ball drops. He kisses on the cheek. And then when they go back to Lydia's, he explains his wife passed away 3 years ago, and that's why he had a quiet Christmas, didn't put up a tree. And she's like, I would have invited you to my Christmas. And he's like, next Christmas then. Easy there, Jim. Don't want to scare off the lady. Come on, that's dating 101. So they're kissing on the couch, and Lydia goes for the rub and tug, but he pulls back and she says, forgive me. And she's like, I don't know what I was thinking. Again, this is a mix of religious beliefs and them both kind of in a weird state post-marriage. And he's like, I had a great time, but it's too soon for me. So she's rejected. She has feelings of complete rejection here. However, I don't know about the trope that comes up next where she's slamming into a mirror. And this whole backstory still kind of felt like a Lifetime channel backstory with the Christmas lights, and it's very light, and it didn't really get us totally into the mindset of Aunt Lydia. It felt kind of cut and paste from other shows that have done similar type of backstories. What separated it as its own character and just the landscape of TV? This is a very interesting character in Aunt Lydia. She's a villain. That usually makes it for the best backstory and to get into the mindset, and I still don't feel like I learned much about her from I did before this episode, and that's incredibly disappointing. But you see here, Lydia's pissed. She's angry she was rejected. She's also angry that she was even put in this situation to go out of her comfort zone, and blames Noelle in her head and is like, why did I even go into that lifestyle? I'm against that. So she requests emergency removal of her kid, and she even mentions saying all the bad things she does for the kid. He's not showered, doesn't feed him right, but also mentions that she's seeing a man with a wife. She's like, the child is vulnerable to a corrupting influence. We are required by law to report moral weakness. There you go, Unfit. So they say they're putting the kid Ryan in a foster home, and the guy's like, there's wonderful parents who are desperate to adopt. This exactly is the frame of Gilead and the way they think. And this was particularly the best acting to me of Aunt Dowd here. She's always great, but this moment she was really, really good. And she's like, there's so many people with so much love to give. This is just a Gilead mindset and their delusion. just wanting to control others, and extreme religious people are like this as well. They want it their way, it's the only right way, and they'll even take into someone else's life. There's no live and let live, and that she knows what's best, not the kid's own mother. And Noelle comes and she's like, you're ruining his life, you cold-hearted B-word. And Lydia says back, I forgive you. I like the writing there. Totally sums up Aunt Lydia as well. Just, again, extreme religious person you've met before that just somehow is a way of spinning it towards you, like the mom's doing something wrong. It is cold, and Noelle's completely right, and this is just a woman who uses her moral justifications and beliefs for the wrong reasons. So I've never been more conflicted about an episode of Handmaid's Tale than this one. This was a decent backstory for Aunt Lydia, but it doesn't feel it's doing justice enough for a character like her, and it felt a bit rushed. The episode was only 45 minutes long, one of the shorter ones of the season. I would have thought it would have been a longer one. And on top of that, I actually would have preferred the format we've seen in other shows where 3/4 of the episode is Aunt Lydia's backstory right from the top, and then you end catching back up with the main story with something significant happening related to Aunt Lydia. And I felt like cutting equal time between the main plot and Aunt Lydia was just such a letdown, and that iconic character deserved more. And I'm just frustrated because the protagonist, June, to me, just got really unlikable. And again, this started from that rope pull. It had its moments this episode, but it is a letdown, and I tried to give scores based not on exactly what I think they should have done or not agreeing with the decision they went, but how it's made and how it connects everything together and progresses the plot. And this episode just kind of fell into that trap of character inconsistencies and extremes and kind of getting unrealistic. And I think this happened now with June. And she's not the only character I've said that's happened to, or I've said with Waterford it's happened, especially with Lawrence. So it's, again, dangerous waters when you're making your protagonist in that villain area. We need something to root for in this bleak, bleak society of Gilead. And we really need this story to move forward now. This is dragging its feet. And I just don't feel like I know so much as I wanted to about Aunt Lydia and how she thinks. And in that mind, in her perspective, it's just kind of what I already figured. It wasn't thought outside the box. So I'm giving this episode an 8.1. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know my opinion is a little polarizing here, but let's just keep it civil in the comments down below. And everyone has the right to their opinion. Just be cool about it. And I'd love to hear it. And let me know what you thought of the episode. Maybe you dug it. Maybe you hated it. And if you're still tuned into the season just as much, if you're ready for the rest and excited, or if you're thinking about jumping the ship, I'd love to hear that as well. Please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram. And please share this video. Whatever you can do to help, if you can like it, that would be awesome. And obviously, please subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss one of my reviews of The Handmaid's Tale. I do a bunch of other reviews as well, and interviews. Praise be, and I'll see you next time.